Hello and welcome to the Five Factors Podcast. This is episode 10, a very special Halloween episode coming your way. And I am Tal Prince here along with my delightful friend and leadership wizard, Matt Adair. Matt, how are you?
I'm doing well, Tal. I'm sitting here thinking about my favorite Halloween costume growing up, and it wasn't quite a wizard, but I was a Jedi. Okay, so it's 1981.
Straight.
Yeah, so Empire Strikes Back had come out in 1980, and I decided that I wanted to be Luke Skywalker. Now, thankfully, because kids, back in 1981, there were not these pre-made Halloween costumes. Like, if you were going to be somebody, like, you had to work for it. So I'm going to
cobble
be
it together. Yes.
Yeah, so I'm going to be Luke Skywalker in Dagobah with that crazy tan outfit that he had, right? So I had this fake velour
Nice.
tracksuit that was tan and had navy blue and red piping. Okay, so that was the Luke Skywalker outfit, and I had a flashlight that would light up to 4 different colors. That was the lightsaber.
Of course it was.
And it was
explanation.
Awesome. And I just rolled like a boss all the way through my neighborhood.
Yes, you did.
Took a bunch of candy from people.
Yes, you did.
Yes.
But and defeating the Empire by taking their candy. That's what you were doing.
Yeah, I was still kind of flirting with the dark side, which is why I was stealing candy and not necessarily just waiting for what they received. You know, what'd you give me? Great, I'm going to take 2 more.
Why not?
Yeah.
I went. I'm older. And so
yes, you are.
back in well, you didn't have to say it like that, man. I mean,
just wanted to be clear.
So back in middle school, I went, and that's back in the days when we called it junior high. So I went as Steve Martin. Because Steve
Martin, the jerk, Steve Martin.
Yes, but I went as Steve Martin, the stand-up comedian. The jerk had not come out yet. I'm older. So what I did is he was really, I mean, just like the first comedian to do like arena shows. I mean, he was packing out 40,000 seat arenas, and he would always wear a white suit. That was the deal, and so I got a white suit. I rocked a white suit as Steve Martin, and I went and I never said trick or treat the entire time. I just said I'm a wild and crazy guy.
Nice.
And you know, my friends said trick or treat, so I had them set me up for the punchline.
Yes.
So that was probably one of the most fun costumes I've had, ever as Halloween.
There you go.
But it leads to the big question. So is it Halloween? Is it Halloween or is it Reformation Day, man?
I am grateful for the Reformation. Happy 500th anniversary, Reformation people. And it's really at the heart of our theology in my church here in Athens, Georgia. Mm-hmm. But our college students are gone every Reformation Day because it's fall break. And so we've never made it that big of a deal. And plus, I have 3 kids at home, 12, 9, and 6. And we don't do the fake Halloween thing. We just straight up roll with Halloween. And so, I would say Halloween is the bigger deal for us culturally. That said, don't at me here, kids. I am very grateful for the Reformation.
Subtweets coming your way.
I don't want to hear any of it, So, yes.
So you don't dress your kids up as reformers?
Yes, but the reformers just happen to be ninjas or transformers or football players.
Which is a little known fact. Zwingli looked very much like a ninja as he
does. He looks like Sensei Wu from Ninjago.
He does, especially if you check him out on the Beeson Divinity School pulpit. Yes. He looks just like that. And
we'll give you a picture in the show notes, kids. You'll be able to see what we're talking about.
And I'm going to tell you straight that Zwingli, an underrated reformer in my book, just because of his loathing of pipe organs. I'm a fan. You go ahead, Zwingli.
Shout out and apologies to all the pipe organists out there. We love you. At least I do. I don't know about Tal, but I'm for
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
I, I believe
Matt
in you.
loves you, and Jesus loves you through me. We'll do it that way today. So we're going to talk about a simple and effective way to develop leaders today, and that's a topic near and dear to Matt's heart, and it's really one of the things that he does best is helping people come up with a simple and effective way just to develop leaders underneath you, because it's very, very important. But it's a misleading. It can be a misleading title, just because leadership development doesn't necessarily develop leaders, right? Talk about that, man.
Well, and this is really captured in a Harvard Business Review article that we'll put in the show notes as well, that basically said the way that people think about leadership development, which tends to be, I'm going to give you a future potential leader. I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to give you a set of training. I am going to train you how to be a leader. And that has been sort of the common practice in leadership development, whether it's in the marketplace, whether it's in the church space. That's tended to be the way that we have approached it. And this article just points to just various different forms of research that's basically said that doesn't work. You don't develop leaders by primarily training them, that you don't end up creating the men and women that you want to see take on the responsibility, leverage their influence to be able to help people reach a common goal. It doesn't work that way. So if you're walking in and you're thinking about developing leaders and you're thinking, oh, okay, well, we're talking about training stuff and creating a course or a class or some kind of environment for people to get trained to be a leader, doesn't work.
No, and I have been in corporate America. I've seen lots of leadership training, leadership development programs, and I was in one. That would fall under the auspice of that article, I think,
Right.
very, very well. So, but you have a point that developing leaders is vital to your health. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, I mean, I think first off, if you hear me say, "Hey, you're not going to be able to train leaders," then you go, "Well, how in the world can you develop leaders?" I mean, you can do it, and it's actually not nearly as difficult and challenging as a lot of us think. Um, uh, and I think we need to say that because I know leaders who skip this. I know leaders who are hard workers. Maybe they delegate some work, but the work of developing somebody takes a little bit more time, and it
Mm-hmm.
is on some level it's more easy to get things done on your own. And so if you're going to do this, I think you need to see why it's important, and I think it's vital for your health because you're only one person.
Mm-hmm.
And unless you develop other leaders, unless you multiply yourself, you're going to limit what you're going to be able to do vocationally because there's only one of you.
Mm-hmm.
You're really going to challenge yourself physically and mentally because there's only one of you. You're going to really challenge your relationships and not have as much margin as you might want to have for your family, for your friends, for your life with God, because there's only one of you and you're trying to do too much work. And so if you're going to get where you want to go, if you are leading an organization, if you're leading a team, even as a parent, like this is what
Mm-hmm.
we're talking about today is going to be helpful for you as parents.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you want to get where you want to go, you're going to need to multiply your efforts. And that means that I think leadership development is critical to what you want to do in your work.
Absolutely, and it requires it's something that I don't think a lot of us are born with. Just this innate gift to develop, train a leader. It's something that's really, really hard to do because a lot of it involves letting go of control. A lot of it has to do with inviting failure in, because to develop people, you have to let them fail, right? And so
Right.
there's a lot of fear around that. But who should be developing leaders?
Well, again, I think if you are an organizational leader, I think it makes a ton of sense for you to do that and to really have a vision where we have a leadership culture and where we are finding a way to recruit new leaders, to train, to encourage all of our leaders. Like we want to do all those things. And even if you're leading a team and just a small department in your church or in your organization, and again, even if you're a parent, like you want to do this because if you want to help somebody be the best version of themselves,
Mm-hmm.
if you want to help somebody mature into the person that we believe God created them to be, then it makes sense to take time to develop them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And and putting that time into them, you're not going to really be able to do that without some form of relationship, right? I
Yeah.
mean, you got to have a relationship with a person. I went back to when I first started in corporate America, when I was working for, a company I think I've talked about here on the podcast. But I mean, look, man, they said, here's our leadership training program. You're the first one. We don't know what we're doing. Go find something you like, play around with that, and then when you figure like you've got it or you're bored with it, let me know. We'll move you someplace else. And then when we're in the same country, the president told me, when we're in the same country, we'll get together, we'll sit down, and he would just sit and run case studies by me and ask me questions as to what I would do. But geez, we were forming a relationship in that, and it was really kind of hands-on training at that point, because I was out in the field doing stuff and learning, but spending a lot of time with him talking and trying to assimilate and apply a lot of things that I was learning. But you've got a study from the Academy of Management, Learning, and Education that talks about developing leaders through relationship.
It's a large organization, by the way. Don't underestimate them.
It's Academy.
That's right. So it was a great case study, and what I like about it, and we'll link this up in the show notes as well, that they basically came back to this principle, and I do want to make sure that as you're listening to this, that to drive this home, and that is that the best way to develop leaders is through relationship. Now, we don't mean being best friends with everybody that you're developing, but we are talking things like mentoring and coaching, and that's a lot where this case study is really focusing on, is the simplicity, the clarity of just going, look, if you will invest relationally in the people that you're developing, it's going to really help you get where you want to go. And so that's really what I'd want to just kind of cut through the fog of leadership development and say, this is what I want you to know, at the very least, to walk away with this. If you will invest relationally in the people that you are working with, who are working for you, that you are attempting to develop, it's going to really help you get a long way towards where you want to go in helping them get where they want to go.
Yeah. In my experience with that, I mean, being out in the field was cool and all, and doing things and, learning, but the most valuable time that I had during all of that was, sitting down in an office with the president and having him just kind of run stuff by me, and he and I talking it through. I learned more in those times than I did almost anywhere else. But so you've got a simple, kids, 3-question process to consistently develop leaders. So what are the questions? Let's start with question 1. What's question 1?
Yeah. So the first question, and this really is kind of in the relationship, whether that is in the office, over a cup of coffee, on a text message, whatever it is, these 3 questions are questions that I use with my team, that my team members use with their team, that I've helped, easily over 150 different organizations put this into place. When they want to know how to do leadership development, I'm like, just do this, and it's going to give you a ton of mileage here. So it's just 3 questions. The first question is this: how are you? Because the people you are developing are people. They're not automatons. They're not robots. And I hope that if we are developing somebody else, that we care about them more for who they are than what they produce. That we need them to produce because we want to be productive, but we want to care about them as human beings, and we want them to know that we genuinely care about them. And so, full stop, if you don't care about the people that are working for you, that's not a them issue, that's a you issue. But let's assume that everybody's like, yes, I do care about the people that I want to develop. And so the very first question is a very simple one. How are you? Not how are you doing, because they're not automatons. Not even something as intense of how are you feeling. I think just starting with that simple, how are you? People are going to come at that from different places. Sometimes they'll share where they are emotionally. Sometimes they'll come in and they'll give you a really flat, I'm good. And then you'll have to kind of work from there. But that simple question of how are you is a great way to consistently start those conversations as you're developing somebody as a leader.
And now, when you're talking about asking that question, because obviously that's a question I ask in my line of work every day. But is that a walking down the hall, hey, how are you? Or is that better if you have the time to, walk into a team member's office or a cubicle or wherever they are, and just focus in on them in that moment and say, hey, just want to come by and see how you're doing?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's something that's intentional, and I think it's something that you should plan on doing consistently, whether that's once a week or once a month, that you just know that you're going to roll these three questions out and you're going to have a conversation based on these three questions. So, yeah, I mean, you are taking time, you're investing intentionally in this. So this is more than just the walking by, hey, how are you doing today? I mean, this is a sitting down and just taking time to ask somebody, hey, I see you. How are you?
Hmm. Yeah, it's more effective than a drive by.
Yeah,
Because I mean, we've all seen the drive by. How are you? The social contract. How are you? It's like, oh crap, we made eye contact.
right.
Um,
Yeah,
and speaking from two introverts doing a podcast, we avoid eye contact at all costs.
that's exactly right.
It's just, we're not looking to. We don't want to have a conversation.
Yeah, we're
Uh,
not even facing the camera right now. Like we're both looking
no.
sideways, and so
Yeah.
neither one of us is making eye contact.
But having one of the byproducts of that's going to be emotional intelligence, right? I mean,
Yeah,
that's
I mean, yes, we do care about people, but the reason that this falls under the category of leadership development is you're actually passing along a skill that you're developing yourself, which is emotional intelligence. And we talk a lot about this related to mental health and resilience and that part of the five factors. And so we're trying to help people grow in that really from two perspectives. When you ask somebody the question, how are you? You are helping them develop language to be able to articulate how they are actually doing, how they are feeling. And because at the heart of emotional intelligence, you want somebody who is self-aware. It's
hmm
really difficult to lead well if you aren't self-aware. And so just by having that conversation, how are you? Now we have to have some situational awareness. Like, well,
hmm
how am I actually? And so this is one of those things where it isn't just you ask the question, how are you? And then you just kind of sit back. I mean, you let it kind of go where it is. But I
hmm
think if you are finding ways that you're learning how to articulate how you're feeling, then you're going to be able to help them develop in that area as well. So this is a physician heal thyself, and you
hmm
want to grow in this too if you're developing somebody else. But I love that question because it is helping you in real time
hmm
develop somebody else when it relates to their self awareness.
And it's real helpful. Just I'll give you a therapist secret. Use the power of silence. If you ask
Yes.
somebody how they are, shut up. You see that? You just leave that pause there, because the first response is usually going to be good. Fine, good, it's all right, whatever. You're going to get responses like that. But if you come back and just let somebody know you're sincerely wanting to know how they are doing, uh, and then just be quiet and let them know. And you'll watch your people have to learn this. You'll watch them learn the building blocks of emotional intelligence in that moment, because
Yeah.
they're going to sit there and they go, geez, I don't really know. I mean, you watch them really have a thought process as to how they're doing, and you're giving them a great gift and creating the space for them to do that.
Yeah, and
Um,
it's going to be beneficial for them for their own self
mhm,
awareness, and then you're also helping them develop empathy for other people. So what you're
mhm,
doing in that moment, where you are not coming in to have a conversation, how are you? I'm doing great. How are you? No, that's
mhm,
not what we're really doing there. Okay, I'm happy to have that conversation at some point with somebody,
mhm,
but I'm pretty quickly going to try to kind of steer it back around, and as I'm explaining what I'm doing
mhm,
at some point and helping people understand this is kind of the rhythm here. These are the steps we're taking.
mhm,
Then I'm trying to help them understand that not only is this going to help them personally with their own self awareness, it's going to
mhm.
help them grow in empathy for other people. And that's the two sides of the coin of emotional intelligence: self
Yeah,
awareness and empathy. And if you have those two things, it's going to be really, really valuable as a leader.
and I'd be interested in your thought on this. I know that for me, um, I really suggest strongly that you not use the "How are you" question. Like, use this question by itself with no other agenda. It's not foreplay before the meeting.
Yeah.
It's not coming in and saying, "Hey, how are you?" And then you've got a list of agenda items you got to tick off, because you'll just diminish the power of it.
Yeah. So I would edit it this way. I think that it needs to be genuine and sincere,
Hmm.
and not the quick step into the meat of where you want to get to, which are the second and third questions.
Hmm.
So I do think that there are times in which maybe you do just want to have that conversation. I'll have situations with people on my team. I know what they're going through, and then we'll just sit down and I'll just use this. Hey, how are you? And that's it. And I'm not going to ask the other 2 questions in this 3-question sequence. But I think that if you do want to use this as part of this kind of leadership development sequence that we're talking about here, I think it needs to be sincere. This doesn't need to be rushed. And you need to give this as much time for you to be curious, for you to ask follow-up questions, for you to just listen. Somebody, when you're done with this first question, when you just kind of exhausted that kind of conversational rhythm, that person should know that you genuinely and sincerely care about them.
Yeah, and as you do both, you'll build that credibility. If you just kind of come in always and it's, hey, how are you? Yeah, okay. Well, here's the things I need to talk to you about. Well, then that person is never going to get the idea that you really care about them. Right. It's just social contract.
Yeah.
And that's not going to get you there. And there's no emotional intelligence in that. It's just I don't know how to start a conversation with you other than this.
Yeah.
But developing emotional intelligence is a critical component of leadership development. And you say developing emotional intelligence is about 80% of the work.
Yeah. I mean, I think if you develop leaders who have emotional intelligence, you have done more than 3/4 of the work that you need to do. I think so much of leadership development gets stuck on either character or competency. And character development is interesting. I think that a lot of that could be picked up within the culture of an organization, but I think that the idea of character development, we don't have a lot of research that basically tells us that if you have a character-based leadership development program, that's really going to go well. I understand that in churches, and I would say that in churches, a lot of that falls under the umbrella of discipleship. And I think discipleship and leadership development are connected, but they're not necessarily one and the same. So when we're talking about leadership development, you can go for character or you can go for competency. But if a leader lacks emotional intelligence, I don't care how much competency they have. I don't care how good of a character they have. People are not going to follow them. So if you invest in that one question of how are you, then you are going to do the vast majority of the work that you need to do in developing another leader. Because I can't tell you, and I was thinking about this when we were working on getting ready for the show, that I was thinking of just the examples in my own church and the organizations that I've been a part of where a lack of emotional intelligence is the fundamental challenge and flaw in somebody's leadership. Every single time. If I had 10 names, 9 of them, the issue was a lack of emotional intelligence.
Oh, and that's what I do. I see it every day. That's always the grind.
And full disclosure, like the way that I am wired, this is not something that comes to me intuitively. Like I'm around people that just are so good at this intuitively, and Todd put you in this category. But for me, like I have to work at this. It's probably one of the reasons why I make such a big deal out of it in leadership development is because it doesn't come intuitive to me. It doesn't mean that I don't care about people, but it's how do I get from what's genuinely inside of me to have that communicated in such a way that people receive it, believe it, and know that it's true.
Yeah, we've had many conversations about that over the years. And honestly, you've come so far on that. I don't see that. I would put you in this category yourself now. I mean, you've done a lot of work on that, man. It really does show. In case you did not know that.
Well, I appreciate that. It's also 13 years of having people usually, just kind of point that out. But I mean, so when I became pastor of this church that I'm still leading at 28, I didn't even have real categories for it. I'm sure people had told me, but I mean, I had to kind of feel the pain of not leading people well. Because I just lacked emotional intelligence and going, hey, if I want to be here and if I want people to know that I care about them, I got to work on this. And so that's what we did here.
Yep. Okay, so let's talk about, that was the first of the 3 simple questions.
Yes.
The second and third questions, let's hit those real quick. What's the second question? The
second question is pretty simple. What are you working on? And this is a way that you can get sneaky with how you manage people. So there's a lot of different ways to do this. People, want reports and all that kind of stuff like that. And I've just found it's a lot easier to go, hey, what are you working on this week? And just, again, creating space for them to talk about that and ask follow-up questions. And if you know they're working on, certain projects, you can ask about that. But I'm just kind of again, trying to get awareness of what they are working on. It allows me to just go, hey, do I feel like they're making progress? I can ask them questions, what about that? I thought we were working on this. But it is kind of the management question in terms of leadership development. And because you want people to be working on the things that we all agree that they should be working on. So that's the second question. And the third question is also a pretty simple one, which is, how can I help you? So all the conversation about servant leadership, like, this is what this looks like. I understand that we have this visual of Jesus washing his disciples' feet, and we're going, well, how do we do that in our church, in our organization, or something like that? I think the way that you do this consistently is, how can I disadvantage myself in terms of time and energy and come alongside of you and help you on the things that you're working? So that little 3-question process: how are you? I care about you. What are you working on? I care about the work that we're doing. And then question 3, well, how can I help you? That is you putting yourself not from the top down, but coming side by side along them to help them get where they want to go. And so, my hope is, when I'm asking these questions, that that I'm dealing with situations when people are like, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to deal with that person. I'm not sure that I understand what you want from me, those kind of things. And so it kind of just creates this good rhythm where we're able to now be in a space situationally where somebody needs to grow as a leader, because we're right at this place where they don't have the clarity they need, they're not getting the momentum they need, and they're a little concerned maybe that they're not going to get the results that they want.
Yeah, and those, there's such power in this, and this is not an hour. This does not take a whole truckload of time, and the return on investment in this time is, you can't overstate it. It's just really powerful, effective stuff. And the "how can I help you" question, I'll tell you, you will set yourself apart from a large percentage of leaders when you're asking your people how you can help them. What do you need from me? How can I help you? And that, when I first learned that lesson was, I'm older. This was
1947.
Well, and you'll probably know this a whole lot better than I, but I just remember we were living in Memphis, and Lou Holtz was coaching Arkansas at that time, and they were like giants.
Yeah, I think he was coaching Arkansas when Jesus was still walking the earth. So yes, you're old.
Yeah, and this was before he started the lisp. But so Lou Holtz, he answered every phone call. He came and spoke to my middle school. We called it junior high. He came and he spoke there, and he's a great speaker. And so, I was just riveted. I'm like, this guy's awesome. How can I do what this guy does, except without having to learn football, because I don't understand it. But I'll never forget, he said, I answer every phone call the same way. And he just picks up the phone and says, Lou Holtz, how can I help you? At that time, head coach of just a powerhouse in college football, and every phone call answered was, Lou Holtz, how can I help you?
Yeah.
It catches people off guard, and in a day and age when we are seeing selfishness and self-centeredness play out in epic proportions, and narcissism play out in epic proportions in leadership the worldwide, for you to flip the script on somebody like that, say, hey, how can I help you? They're not expecting it. And they really feel invited in, and feel an important and vital part of the team at that point. And it's really, really, that question is a very, very powerful question.
It is. And I think two of the things that I've seen with my own team that have happened, one is the fact that I think that they know, because we all respect one another's time. And when it becomes understood that I'm going to offer my help, that what I found over time is that at the beginning when we started doing this, that the answers were kind of flat. They were kind of just, they were unclear. And now I think as we understand each other and they understand how I can help them, then the answers and the responses and what they're asking from me tends to be more in line with, I have this pain point and I know you well enough, Matt, to know how I think you might be able to help me here. And so that's helpful. It's like helping
Mhm.
them get a little bit more clear about how to ask for help. And the second thing that I would say is that, I said, focusing on character and competency probably isn't the primary way that you want to develop leaders, but you do need to help them develop character and competency. And I think this is the best way to do it because you're doing it as they are going through the pain of work. And so I think
Mhm.
that's kind of the crucible that's going to allow you to see their struggles with their
Mhm.
character or their competency and then go, okay, now that, because there is some pain involved, now we really want to invest in it instead of just
Mhm.
kind of doing this sort of top down leadership training on character
Mhm.
and competency when people don't really care. When's the best time to teach somebody how to delegate? When they just screwed it up and they didn't do it well or they didn't do it at all. But when they feel that pain point of like, man, if I don't learn how to delegate, I'm going to
Mhm.
either burn out my team or I'm going to burn myself out. Great. Now we can do something because you're feeling the pinch point of not doing that well.
Yeah, and in my arena, that's hey, the worst thing we can do as parents, but also sometimes as leaders, is protect somebody from their natural consequences. They're not going to learn. They're not going to learn, and it's hard, especially when it also involves your time, your bottom line, involves your reputation, your image. When all that gets tied up, it's really hard to let them experience those natural consequences. I mean, I'm telling you, it's one of the hardest things ever, for, me as a dad to have either of my daughters send me a text going, I mean, I forgot to bring my, whatever. I forgot to bring my iPad to school. I forgot to bring my homework assignment. I forgot to bring this and just be like, wow, that sucks. And
Yeah.
not, and everything in me wants to get in the car and race that up there and get it to them.
Right.
And you may be listening to that going, what an insensitive weasel. But I'm telling you, they'll do it once or twice.
Right.
And then they will learn.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, this is not a crutch to keep people from experiencing failure. This is when they are in the middle of failure,
yes.
and even sometimes on the back end of having made mistakes or things did not go well. And then the question of what are you working on changes a little bit. You begin to go, well, let's talk about that thing that you did work on, and then just go, now how can I help you?
Mm-hmm.
Because again, yeah, I think that you've got to allow people to suffer, struggle, not be as good as you. And I find that that's a
Mm-hmm.
considerable challenge for some of us as leaders because we want things to be competent, want them to be good, want them to have a
Mm-hmm.
certain quality, a certain standard of excellence. But like you're doing a disservice to yourself if you think that that person who's brand new to your organization can just knock it out that first week and you've been doing it for 20 years. I mean, that's crazy. So you're going to have to lower your standards, let them struggle a little bit, but then help them grow over time. And again, these three questions, if you'll just do these things consistently every week for some of us, every month at the
Mm-hmm.
very least, like if you're doing those things, I promise you, you might have to do some other things, maybe. But if
Mm-hmm.
you will commit to doing this for the next 3 months, the next 6 months, I think you're going to be surprised, especially if this infiltrates all the way through your organization. You're going to be surprised at the
Mm-hmm.
power of those three questions to help you see people take ownership of leadership opportunities and for them to actually grow and thrive as leaders in your organization.
Yeah, I agree completely. This is really important stuff, and you'll build such a culture of safety where they're not going to fear bringing failure to you. Because that's a response of a whole lot of people is to, oh crap, I got to hide this
Yeah.
so that those above me don't find out that we're in trouble. Let me see if I can't fix it.
Yeah.
But man, when you create a culture like this where there is safety in failure, that failure is allowed, failure is encouraged as long as we learn from it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that there's not catastrophic results or catastrophic, outcomes for some people that may have used to be in your training program.
Right.
But when you build a culture of, hey, listen, man, bring it to me as soon as you know, and we'll dive in and see what we can all do because it affects all of us. That's really important. And so I know a lot of people are hearing this and are thinking, man, like, so what do I need to do? Man, you can put this into practice today, right,
Yeah.
Matt?
Yeah, I mean, I think you just take somebody who's a direct report, somebody who's working for you, somebody who's reporting to you, and I mean, you can, stop this now. It's the great
Mhm.
part of on-demand audio is that you can hit pause right now, or after I explain to you what to do here, and just text them the
Yeah,
first
hold on just a
question.
second.
Just text
Mhm.
the question, "How are you?" And then see what they text back. Pick up the phone and call them if that's part of your culture. If you prefer that way, if you know the other person would prefer a phone call than a text,
Mhm.
and so I think you can do that very simply. You can schedule time with somebody, in the next week and go, hey, can we grab lunch or coffee? Or can I just swing by your office for about 10, 15 minutes? I just want to kind of check in and see how you're doing.
Mhm.
But the thing that you'll mess up here is that you won't do those things. Like you'll hear this, and there's nothing complicated about what we've been
Nope.
talking about. Those three questions: how are you? What are you working on? How can I help you? Anybody can do that.
Mhm.
But where the clients that I work with, where they don't succeed is because they don't do it. And so when we're done talking, when you're finished listening to this episode,
Mhm.
text somebody, call somebody,
Mhm.
send them an email, schedule time with them. Either begin that conversation now or schedule the conversation, and just plan on with your direct reports in the next week, in the next month, every single one of them having at least one of these conversations with these three questions at the heart of it, and make that happen. And I think you're going to find that it's the first step towards a very different future that's going to create a healthier culture than you have now.
Hmm. Yeah, and just the intentionality of it is going to be key, and
Yep.
you will forget because this is new skill for a lot of you. So if
Yep.
you need to set an alarm in your phone, if you need to use a Siri or a Google Assistant to say, "Hey, remind me to check in on 3 reports today," remind me to check with so and so today, and maybe it's a lunch appointment, maybe it's a coffee appointment where you just let them know clearly, like I don't really have a work agenda. I just want to check in on you.
Yeah.
That's really effective stuff. So we're all about here at Five Factors trying to equip you with tools because there are a lot of us that are out there that just know, geez, I really need to be developing leaders, and I really don't know how to do that, but I know the expectation is there on me to do so.
Yep.
And it feels like a very daunting task at best, and
Yeah.
it feels frightening, intimidating, but the expectation is there to do it, and so it's a really really difficult place. And so we just want to help you along the way and give you the tools and resources you need to help you along this journey to take on this challenge because it is vital to the success of your organization. It's vital to your personal health. It's vital to the health of those that work for you
Yeah.
and work underneath you. So Matt, what resources do we have for everybody today?
Yeah, first off, just one kind of visual concept that I think will help people understand what we're trying to do here with Five Factors are clouds and dirt. So we're going to teach concepts, and we want them to be clear. We want them to we want to take away some of the noise and the feeling of overwhelm that we have in a topic like leadership development. And so what we've been doing today is really talking concept. We've been in the clouds, and now we want to kind of get down in the dirt, and we want to help you get your hands dirty a little bit. And so yeah, we've created a few resources. If you go to fivefactors.net/10. You can get all these in our show notes, okay? So one of the things that we have created is we have created a way for you to basically set clear goals and then develop the projects that you need to develop in order to make progress towards those goals, and then to help you reinforce your intent to make progress by getting this into your schedule. And so we've created a resource at fivefactors.net/freedom where you can go, and it's just a worksheet for you to work through this. So we're going to list out all the 5 factors. So maybe what's happening is you hearing this episode and you're like, man, I really want to kind of nail down leadership development before the end of the year. Like I want to have a clear goal in terms of how we figure this out. Maybe it's just for me, myself, maybe it's for our organization. And we're going to help you make a decision about what to prioritize in terms of a goal so that you're not trying to do everything. You're just focusing on what you really want to accomplish, and then really just walking you through step by step by step to take action on not only setting a goal, but how you accomplish that goal. So that's at fivefactors.net/freedom. The other thing that we've done that we want to talk about today is our coaching program, which you can go to fivefactors.net/join, and you can get information about Five Factors coaching. And inside Five Factors coaching, then we have created my monthly master classes. So every month that we are adding classes on very particular aspects of the five factors process. So we've got stuff in there from emotional intelligence, like we talked about today, leadership development, that's in there, to stuff like sleep and reading the Bible. So all the kind of the different elements of the five factors, we're creating classes on this that you can use to develop yourself. You could share these with your team and work with them on that if that's a particular pain point for them. There's a pretty massive growing resource library that's there. So if you're looking for resources in some of these areas, yeah, we have stuff listed about leadership development. If you want to learn more, if you want to kind of grow in other areas, there's always someplace else to go. And so that's one of the ways that we coach you. So, but if you're also wanting to develop a system, a culture of leadership in your organization or on your team, then inside of Five Factors Coaching, we have created something called Pipeline Academy. And this is a simple and sustainable way for you to recruit, train, and encourage every single leader in your organization. From board members to volunteers if you're in a church, from employees to staff members to board members to C-suite people, if you're in the marketplace. Like, that's available to you, and it's all part of Five Factors Coaching, and you can get access to that for less than $1 a day. So we tried to create something that would be affordable for you, but crazy valuable for you as well. So again, if you go to fivefactors.net/join, you can get information about that, jump in, be part of this kind of growing community of people that we're able to spend time coaching every month. And so it's been a lot of fun for us to develop that content to help you get where you want to go as a leader.
Yeah, and we'll be continuing to develop more and more content in there, so it will stay fresh, and there's always stuff to check in with.
Yep.
So I want to encourage you again, fivefactors.net/join, and go take a look at all the resources available there for you in the Pipeline Academy. So quick review, the 3 questions. How are you? What are you working on? And how can I help you? Go ask those questions today. Find some of your people. Go ask those questions today. It may be helpful for you to just try a little experiment and journal it out so that you kind of check the metrics of your efforts. Just write it down. So today I checked with this person, and then just kind of watch their performance or watch the relationship over the coming days, weeks, and months, and just jot down in the changes that you see so you can prove to yourself the power of these 3 questions in developing leaders. How are you? What are you working on? And how can I help you? So this has been episode 10, the Halloween episode of the Five Factors podcast. I am Tal Prince. And Matt, any last words?
Yeah, I've got some Halloween tips for people. If you're a follower of Jesus, the people around you are going to observe Halloween, even if you're not personally. So I think one way to be a good neighbor, like, you don't have to believe in it. You don't have to send your kids out trick-or-treating. You can do the trick or trunk or trunk or treat or whatever it is at your church. That's great. But in your neighborhood, would you at least leave a big bowl of candy? Not fun-size candy bars, full-size candy bars. And kids, this is super important. Definitely do not leave Tootsie Rolls. That is not loving your neighbor well.
That is not cool. Neither of those little weak, like, wax disguised as taffy wrapped up in orange twisty things. No, that is foul. That is a neighborhood foul. That is not to be allowed under any circumstance.
Yes, go big brand name stuff that everybody recognizes, and everybody will leave your house thinking these are the coolest people in the planet because they gave me not fun size, they gave me full size.
Exactly right, and that's what Halloween's all about.
Absolutely,
is full size. So, this is it did remind me really quickly of one of my favorite Halloween stories of a good friend of ours who shall remain nameless because it involves her mother. So they were never allowed to celebrate Halloween growing up, and they didn't put candy out. They didn't do anything. And, then when the daughter, grew up and got out of the house and was married, and, she and her husband living in the neighborhood, they were like, we're doing trick or treat. We don't care. So they were handing out candy. Well, her mother came over that night. And so they were talking, so it led to a semi-awkward conversation, but then the mother decided, you know what, you're right, I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to, and so this is classic. Knock, knock, knock on the door. The mother goes to the door, grabs the bowl of candy, opens the door, and looks at the unsuspecting children standing there and says, "Trick or treat." She didn't know that's what they're supposed to say. So she thought, I'm supposed to open the door and say trick or treat, like, which would you like? It's a menu of options.
Yes.
Yeah, if you see me on Facebook ever, posting trick or treat, you'll know who the friend is. So
there it is.
There it is. So episode 10, a simple and effective way to develop leaders from your friends here at 5 Factors. Thanks for listening. We will see you on episode 11.